Too loud.
Now you hear it.
Yeah, that's right.
So awesome.
To the government, to the boards. I don't know how they work in their county as far as, because when Rubio goes off, there's going to be an open seat there. I'm not sure how that works in their county. If they're a general election county, then it's an appointment.
He's still better down there than he is where he's at.
Sitting in my chair, so I move my waist back.
I'll report it about the meeting when they're starting to talk. Wow.
I think the room might tilt one way here. All lined up in a row.
Good morning. Welcome to our regularly scheduled Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand and join me in our flag salute and remain standing for a moment of silence. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Our first item today is a presentation on the Alliance Program with Office Depot and other governmental entities. Morning, Al.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Al Guzman. I'm the county purchasing agent. We have been working with Office Depot on an alliance program. We started about 5 years ago with the alliance program, and that's where any government entity within Tulare County, they would co-op and use those funds of the purchase they made through Office Depot for a rebate, and which we get a percentage of that back. Since 2006, when we first got the first check, to the present, we have made $1,405,000 in rebates back within Tulare County. This program is only in Tulare County. I don't think there's any other county or city that's doing this program in the state of California. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Scott Jacobson. He's the Central California manager for Office Depot.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Always good to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I'd like to introduce our team that we brought with us today. We have my counterpart, who is the manager for the K through 12 segment, Sam Castillo. I don't know why they're all in the back row.
I think it's church.
Mark Williamson, who's the sales rep for the K through 12 segment here in Tulare County. Ken Mueller, who is actually the sales rep for all the government accounts, including yours. So if you have any issues at all, call Ken.
Okay.
He'll take care of you. And then also we have Jose Castro, who calls on all of the general line accounts in Tulare County. So we brought our executive team with me today.
Welcome to all of you.
As Al mentioned, we've, over the years, and actually there was 1 year, which is 2005, that we actually sent the checks directly to the agency. So the program actually has generated probably closer to $1.7 million over since 2005. This year's check, which, Mr. Chairman, I have a check presentation for you, is for $327,305.65. And as I opened the envelope that Al gave me, I noticed that it's a copy of the check, so he didn't really trust me with the funds. So you have to see Mr. Guzman for the actual check, but here you go as far as the copy. Absolutely.
I'm not sure he didn't trust you or he didn't trust me, but thank you.
And just a few breakdowns of how the check is broken out. The K through 12 market incorporates 63% of those dollars. 208,000 go to the schools in Tulare County. And then the government and nonprofit sector make up the other percentage, which is 117,000. So we're very happy to partner with Tulare County on this program every year, and we hope to have another successful year next year and be able to present a larger check to you folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. At this time, we will take our public comment period. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Supervisors today on matters within our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda are invited to come forward. Give us your name and address, please. Seeing and hearing no one, we will close the public comment period and bring you to the Board of Supervisors matters. I'll begin with Mr. Ennis on the end this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure to attend the AGM race last week and be the welcoming speaker for the County of Tulare, and it was quite an exciting event. A lot of people showed up, and then of course I went over to the Porterville area where they came through there, and it was kind of neat to watch it on television as they covered the event. So that was kind of a fun deal last week. Also attended and was a speaker at the conference on suicide called A Community of Hope. Quite a meeting, very moving. And also, Porterville Fair, we had our big awards ceremony last Friday. Had over 600 people in attendance and passed out the awards to the 4-H and FFA kids throughout the whole community, from Lindsay to Porterville to Springville and Ducor and Terre Haute in the Poplar area. So, busy week last week.
Thank you. Mr. Sheeta?
Last Saturday, we started our Relay for Life in Exeter, and it was a very successful event. And yesterday, we had a Water Commission meeting yesterday afternoon, and we received a report from a group that we contracted. The acronym is RHYME, and we're finally getting to the point that all this information that the state, the counties, and everybody gathers on groundwater is finally getting to a point where we can put it in a usable form so we can make some decisions from information that's been archived for years. So I think we're finally on our way. We're waiting for the next part of the grant that we have been received from the state of California to actually get into more of the mapping. So it was a very good presentation. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Vanderpool?
You can skip Mr. Cox?
Mr. Cox has reason to be last.
Okay, all right, that's fair. A couple things that I just wanted to mention. First of all, tomorrow is the State of the City of Tulare address, and apparently there's only there's actually about 7 to 10 people on a waiting list to get tickets. I guess everyone's real excited to come and hear me speak, so I'm pretty happy about that. So not really. They're excited about what's going on in the city of Tulare, and I am too. So excited for that event tomorrow, and I just wanted to mention that.
Very good. Well, before I go to Mr. Cox, let me just say that the Thursday was not only exciting in Visae, it was somewhat exciting at the Air Board as well. You may have seen some of the reports about the meeting. One of the bigger events was the passage of the rule concerning open field burning. If you'll recall, there was a series of bills, the 700 bills, AB 700s, that were passed some years ago that dealt with a lot of aspects of air quality. These were generated by then Assembly Member Dean Flores, and they dealt with all sorts of agricultural things which had been exempt and had recently, right before those bills passed, been determined to be non-exempt under the federal EPA. And they dealt with such things as dairies and open field burning. So the issue of open field burning was that the district had passed previous rules that had eliminated about 70% of the open field burning, and the balance was operated what's called a smoke management plan, and that allows burning only by permit and only when weather conditions would allow burning to occur that would not violate the air standards. And in fact, no standards have ever been violated by controlled burns on the valley floor, unlike what happens in the national forests, national parks. But under the bill, there was a provision that we're supposed to phase them all out by June 1st of 2010, except under the bill there was an allowance for if economic analysis determined it was not cost effective to do so. So the board staff went through quite an extensive process. We had about a 500-page study and report that analyzed this issue and determined that there were, in fact, things that were not cost effective, particularly in the vineyard business, because pulling out vines means you got to pull wire and so forth. It's very, very expensive. So we did pass the rule. The rule will probably reduce open field burning to about 85% from the 70% that we now are at. Senator Flores was not present, but he sent two of his assistants there, and a letter was read to us that threatened the Air District that if they passed this bill on this particular date, that he would do everything in his power to curtail the funding to the Air District from the state of California. Needless to say, that report was not received with joy by the governing board, and ultimately the board did pass the rule, and apparently Senator Flores, according to the paper, is busily trying to make good on his threats. Anyway, so it was a very exciting day at the board, and I happened to be the lucky person chairing the meeting because the normal chair was out that day with an emergency. So it was an interesting day. Anyway, so that was my day last Thursday. Otherwise, it's been much more enjoyable for the most part. And now I will turn the meeting over for a moment to Supervisor Fox.
No, thank you. Well, thank you for allowing me to go last. A couple of quick reports. Retirement fund up to $931 million. Had a little glitch this month, but it will be back. Anticipate hitting the $1 billion mark again later this year. So that fund is returning to health. I think due to the strategy and the wise investments being made by the retirement board. Next, I want to thank this board for throwing me into the lion's den with the Agriculture Advisory Committee. Supervisor Sheeta laughs, but it literally is a very interesting process. Last week, the folks talked about new zoning ordinance issues that are going to be coming before the Planning Commission shortly, and they've called a special meeting for tomorrow during the Planning Commission. This will look at allowing folks the ability to split off home parcels off existing lands, splitting properties, and it was quite a diverse group of folks that were there in attendance talking about why we should or should not loosen up or tighten down on those requirements. So it's going to be a very interesting process, but thank you for tossing me into it. It will be a fun one. And now why I've asked to go last, we do have a press release here that will go out today in regards to Measure R. As you know, last week the CTC granted more funding for the Plaza Drive project here in the city of Visalia, and a nice byproduct of that is that we'll free up an additional $14 million for additional programming for Measure R regional projects here in the first 15-year time period. Now, what's exciting about this, and we do have a flyer as well that will be made available. Something I've been pushing Mr. Smalley for about 2 months now is to put something like this together because of the success of Measure R that we've seen here in the county over the last 3 years. It was anticipated by this time, in the first 5 years, Measure R would have produced $49 to $50 million worth of projects. In reality, we are over $200 million of projects in progress. So Measure R has overperformed by nearly 400%, which not only is improving our roads, but giving us new roads, new over crossings over the freeways, new grade separations in cities with the railroad issues that we're having. There's a long list here of projects that are undergoing the process right now. So a very exciting time, literally thousands of jobs being created right now, today, because of an action the people of this county took in 2006 to vote themselves a half-cent sales tax. And in celebration for that, Mr. Chair and Ted Smalley, could you meet me at the in the middle?
Yes.
Fox celebrate, as you can tell by looking at me, with eating cake. So I would like to present to Ted Smalley and the chair of our board a measure of our cake, and I would like everyone at the board, if the chair would allow us a recess, to cut the cake and allow everyone to participate and celebrate with us the success of Measure of Our Cake.
Meeting this afternoon here.
You might want to mention it to whoever.
We'll come back into session, and thank you to Supervisor Cox for that nice cake and the opportunity to celebrate. It really is cause for celebration. The success of Measure R has been far and way above our expectations, and that's the good news.
Mr. Chair, if I can, one last thing. Cake was free. The bottles of milk outside are $10 a piece.
Supervisor Vanderpool wanted me to come back to him, and I'm glad he's back on the dais with us. So,
One thing that I wanted to mention before, I had intended to do it during my Board of Supervisors matters, but I would like to take a brief second, and that's actually what the cake was for, but it has a picture of a road on it, so I don't know if this employee is planning on doing some traveling or not, but I wanted to acknowledge an employee from the Health and Human Services Agency who is now going to be retiring as of today, and that is David Crawford. He's the director of, Dave, you deal with Human Services, correct? Out of the Health and Human Services Office, and he's been with the county for over 33 years, so again, longer than I've been alive, but we are sure grateful for his years of service, and he's going to be greatly missed. So he's going to be having a retirement reception today. I believe that's at Health and Human Services. So we encourage everyone to stop by and wish him the best of luck in his retirement.
I noticed that David winced when you said that about working longer than you've been alive.
congratulations to you, David. We wish you the best with your retirement. This time we'll take up our consent calendar. There are items 6 through 28 and also an addendum, and there is one correction on the addendum. Language needs to be added that authorize the county administrative office with concurrence of the auditor controller to take appropriate action based upon ordination of county tax increment revenue payments. Okay. Are there any items that members wish to handle separately?
I would like to pull item number 12 for separate consideration as well.
All right. As well? That's the only
Well,
thing.
as well as the correction.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? If not, then entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Motion is for consent calendar items 6 through 28 and the addendum absent item 12. Please cast your votes. Votes are unanimous. We'll take up item 12 individually.
The reason that I pulled, or I asked to pull item number 12 was because during the eminent domain hearings, I did recuse myself from this item in the abundance of caution, just due to business relationships between my family and this person. So I'm going to recuse myself again from this item, just to be consistent.
Don't go too far. I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Ennis, seconded by Mr. Cox. Please cast your votes. Votes are unanimous, 4-0. Vanderpool not being present to vote. And he's back on the dais, and that will take us then to our timed items. It's now 9:30. We'll take item number 4, a public hearing, request from the Resource Management Agency to adopt a general plan amendment.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Worley and members of the board. Thank you. This is John Heiser from the Resource Management Agency Planning Division on behalf of Self-Help Enterprises and Family Healthcare Network, requesting to change the land use designation of approximately 4.57 acres from residential to community commercial, located on the southeast corner of Avenue 312, Brigham Avenue, in alignment of Road 72. Let me bring up the presentation here. As I go through this presentation, again, this is the summary of the request from the general plan residential, the community commercial, request of zone change, the R1 site plan review overlaid to a professional office and administrative site plan review overlay, and C1 site plan review overlay. It's located on a parcel number 75-170-131 in Goshen. The request changes of the land use designations are for proposed medical dental clinic and future offices fronting along Riggin Avenue. Associated with this project was a parcel map 09045, which was approved in April at the site plan review committee for a 3-lot parcel map for this project and for the requested land use amendments. As you can see, the site location map outlined here. This is an aerial of the project site. This is the location of the current projects, and the proposed land use redesignations are right along this section. The parcel map that I discussed earlier would divide this 4.57 acres into 3 individual parcels. Again, this is an overall aerial photo showing the breakdown of the request. This is the general plan map showing the current land use of showing the residential and the agricultural uses of the site. The project proposal is within the Visalia urban area boundary and the Goshen urban development boundary. Again, this map shows the official zoning map showing the designated land changes being requested as part of this overall project for Self-Help Enterprises. This is the Goshen Village phased single-family component of the project, which was the single-family residential over here. This is the multifamily residential component, and this is where the current requested land use changes would occur with the proposed medical clinic in this section. Access would be off of Avenue 72. This is just a site plan of the multifamily residential component of that project. And to the north would be the future offices and the medical clinic off of Road 72. This is the parcel map showing the individual parcels. And this is a conceptual site plan of the proposed medical clinic. So once again, RMA staff is requesting County Board of Supervisors to hold a public hearing today on behalf of Self-Help Enterprises and Family Healthcare Network to adopt a general plan amendment, GPA 09005, the 1978 Goshen Community Plan, a component of the land use element of the Tulare County General Plan, change the land use designation of approximately 4.57 acres from residential to community commercial, certified that it has reviewed and considered the information contained in the negative declaration addendum prepared for this project in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Find there is no substantial evidence that the general plan amendment, GPA 09005, have a significant effect on the environment, and determine that the negative declaration addendum prepared for said general plan amendment reflects the independent judgment of the county. Amend the Goshen Community Plan as requested from residential to community commercial to allow for the medical and dental clinic and future offices located on the 4.57 acre site. Adopt the findings for approval for the general plan amendment set forth in Planning Commission Resolution number 8493. And in regards to the zone change, another request to basically hold a public hearing today on behalf of Self-Help Enterprises and Family Health Care Network to change the zone number PZ 09006 from the R1 single family residential to a professional and administrative office site plan review and to neighborhood commercial site plan review zone on the 4.57 acres located in the community of Goshen. Certify that it has reviewed and considered the information contained in the negative declaration addendum prepared for this project in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Find there is no substantial evidence that said change of zone will have a significant effect on the environment, and determine that the negative declaration prepared for said change zone reflects the independent judgment of the county. Adopt the findings for approval for the change of zone set forth in the Planning Commission Resolution number 8494. Waive the final reading and adopt the amended ordinance number 352. And then direct the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to publish the adopted ordinance and return the signed notice of determination to the Resource Management Agency for filing with the county clerk. Therefore, any questions?
Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Cox?
One quick question. I know this is not in the middle of a city. As I look at the site plan, I don't see any landscaping, a couple of trees. Tell me there will at least be a strip of grass and a couple of trees in front of the building, throughout the parking lot.
Yes, this is conceptual. This project will be going through a final site plan review process where we'll be looking at those details and very closely looking at the circulation with the Riggin Avenue and County Road 72, landscaping, signage, sidewalk locations, building setbacks, parking, etc.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? If not, we will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to address us on this matter is invited to come forward and give us your name and address. Morning, Tom.
Good morning. Tom Collishaw, Vice President, Self-Help Enterprises. We clearly support your action today in the affirmative. This will provide a permanent location for Family Health Care Network to continue to provide the important health services that they provide for the community of Goshen. And it also, we think, complements the Goshen Village project that you earlier approved. And so we're very much in support of this. We're here today to answer any questions that you may have of us. And Chris Crawford from Lane Engineers is here as well. Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone else wishing to address us this morning on this matter? Seeing, hearing no one, we'll close the public comment period, bring it back to the board for further consideration and action.
Mr. Chair, I'm glad to motion to approve the project or the requested changes.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Ennis. Is there are there any comments? Or?
Yes, I have a question of staff. What is the status of the Goshen Community Plan?
The current plan,
Current plan?
as far as it's being amended, or the...
When's the last time we updated the plan?
a few years ago, I believe.
The reason I asked that question from your map, it showed you had a lot of A1 still between this property and the freeway. And obviously, A1 zoning is not going to be compatible with what's happening in Goshen. So I would hope that we redo the community plan so that people don't have to go through the site plan, ask for a zoning amendment,
General plan amendments.
general plan amendment.
Chair, members of the board, the work program, after we successfully get our general plan adopted and EIR certified, is a whole series of work programs. And of course, all of our community plans need to be updated. I think the plans were adopted like in earlier late 1980s or late 1970s. And so there is a need for an effort to update our community plans. The most recent one that's underway, which has been put on hold because of change of staff and other things, is Three Rivers. And so we've been working on that one for some time. And so, again, it'll be a matter of a work program to update all of our community plans. And you're right, the A1 zone is a holding zone until such time as we can look at a comprehensive community plan and a comprehensive rezoning for those areas. So.
That was Mr. Jake Raper, our RMA director.
I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. Any other questions?
Okay. And I was just going to say, one of the things pushing this particular project is the overcrossing grade separation project in Goshen, which will essentially sort of isolate the clinic that's located there presently. All right, we have ready to cast our votes. Please cast your votes, and the vote is unanimous for approval. Thank you. And that will bring us then to item number 5, which is a public hearing and a request from the Resource Management Agency to direct staff to continue to receive comments on the draft environmental impact report for the Avenue 280 widening project. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. Thank you for taking the time to let me speak with you today. My name is Reed Hankey. I am an Engineer 3 with the Design Division in the Resource Management Agency. Open up the presentation here. Today I will be presenting to you the Avenue 280 road widening project. We'll briefly go over that, and afterwards I will ask that the chairman open up a public hearing for members of the public to comment on the draft environmental impact report, which has been prepared for this project. SEQA guidelines, which this project is being prepared under, requires a 45-day comment period for the public to comment on and review the draft environmental impact report. That comment period started May 6th and will end June 21st of this year. Comments may be made at today's public hearing, but they can also be submitted in writing to myself at the Today we will be going over the public hearing, receiving comments from the public if there are any. We will be receiving future comments until June 21st, at which time we will incorporate those comments into a final environmental impact report where we will return to the board for approval of that final environmental impact report. The Avenue 280 widening project occurs along Avenue 280, which is also known as Caldwell Avenue or Visalia Road throughout different jurisdictions in the project vicinity. Here you can see Avenue 280 runs along the south of Visalia through Farmersville and Exeter. The project we're discussing here today, segments include a section from State Route 99 to a few hundred feet to the west of Mooney Boulevard within Visalia. So here the project runs through both county jurisdiction and city of Visalia jurisdiction. The surroundings within county jurisdiction are basically rural, and as you move into the city of Visalia, they become more urban. The next segment of the roadway alignment goes from Santa Fe Street in the city of Visalia and moves east to the western extent of the city of Farmersville. Here again, we're in the city of Visalia jurisdiction and county of Tulare jurisdiction. The project is excluding the city of Farmersville section because the city of Farmersville has taken on the widening of that section of roadway on their own, so it is not included in this project. Once we get to the eastern limits of City of Farmersville, project moves through county jurisdiction to Filbert Road in the city of Exeter. So we are within city limits of Exeter. Here you can see again we're going through more rural surroundings in the county jurisdiction, and we have a more urban setting within the city of Exeter. Coordinating agencies between this or for this project is obviously County of Tulare, City of Visalia, and City of Exeter. The Tulare County Association of Governments, TCAG, is involved in the planning of the project as far as funding and early planning stages of the project go. This phase of the project is being funded through both state and federal funding, so we do have coordination with both Caltrans and Highway Administration. The goals of this project are basically to improve the traffic operations and reduce congestion in Tulare County, thus improving regional transportation and the circulation system within the roadway corridor. Another goal of the project is also to provide pedestrian-friendly and ADA-compliant streetscape improvements in the city jurisdictions, both Visalia and Exeter. And here we can see a picture of what the proposed roadway would look at a final completion state. When we talk about traffic congestion, it's basically shown in a level of service which is similar to grades in school, A being good and F being poor. City and county minimum standards are D, and the roadway segment that we're discussing today is currently a B and C in various sections of the roadway. Without the proposed improvements, it's projected that year 2030 conditions will drop to, in some segments, E and F, which is below standard criteria. So with the proposed improvements, the roadway segments would be limited to a D or better level of service. Getting into details of the project, we'll be proposing to widen the roadway to 4 lanes with turn lanes, a median, raised median within city limits, and a dirt median within county jurisdiction, sidewalks within city limits, shoulders and clear recovery zone per county or city standards within either county or the associated city jurisdiction. There will be associated intersection improvements at up to 21 intersections. Some of those intersections will be signalized as they meet traffic warrants as part of this project. Provisions will be made for Class 2 bike lane facilities, and provisions will also be made for transit pullouts and shelters for buses and other transit facilities. Going into a little bit more detail about existing and proposed right-of-way and roadway descriptions. Here we see a picture of the proposed roadway description, or proposed roadway for city or for County of Tulare jurisdiction. The segment between State Route 99 and Shirk Street is currently a 2-lane road with 80-foot right-of-ways. The proposed project will be 120-foot right-of-ways, which allow for 4 lanes, median, shoulder, and a 20-foot clear recovery zone. Then moving eastward, we go from Shirk to Shady Lane, which is just west of Mooney Boulevard within the city of Visalia. The roadway varies, the existing roadway varies from 2 lanes to 4 lanes with median and sidewalk. We've currently got 80 to 118 foot right-of-way, and we will be going to 88 to 118 foot right-of-way. Within the city limits, the existing right-of-way is pretty much complete. There are a few sections where additional acquisition will be required. Moving further east between Santa Fe Street and Lover's Lane, in the city of Visalia, the existing roadway is 4 lanes with median and sidewalk, has an 80-foot existing right-of-way width. There will be acquisition to a proposed 110-foot right-of-way width, which will allow for a full 4 lanes with median and sidewalk. Going into the Tulare County jurisdiction between Lover's Lane and Stephen Ave, which is pretty close to the boundary of the city limits of Farmersville. The county road has existing 2 lanes, varies from 80 feet to 110 feet, wider being on the western side of the road where it narrows down. The proposed project will include 120-foot right-of-ways, 4 lanes, median, shoulder, and the recovery zone. And here we see a diagram of the city of Visalia cross-section with a raised median, sidewalks, planter strip, bike lane, and the 4-lane roadway. Moving eastward still between the eastern limits of Farmersville and the western limits of Exeter. In the Tulare County jurisdiction, the roadway is 2 lanes with 80-foot right-of-ways, and we'll be looking again for the 120-foot right-of-way with that typical county cross-section. Once we get into the city limits of Exeter, between Alberta Avenue and Orange Avenue, the road transitions from an existing 2 lanes to an existing 4-lane roadway. The right-of-way varies between 80 and 82 feet currently, and we will be going for a proposed 4 lanes with median and sidewalk and an 84-foot right-of-way. So there's minimal acquisition there just for some completing out the typical cross-section, which is shown in the picture here for the city of Exeter. Then towards the end of the project, the current roadway transitions back down to 2 lanes. Right-of-way varies between 50 and 60 feet. And again, with this project, we'll be transitioning to 2 lanes with a sidewalk that includes a bike path, so it's a slightly wider sidewalk, and that additional 60-foot right-of-way will allow for that. There's basically one roadway alignment that is proposed with this project. It was determined to minimize, or it was identified in an attempt to minimize the impact on residential displacements, commercial properties and buildings, farmland, and some of the other bullets you see here, such as irrigation and drainage facilities and utilities. In this picture, we see a typical widening where the road is being widened basically along the center line of the roadway, so there's equal acquisitions, approximately 20 feet on either side of the road, and this is a section that's taken within the County of Tulare jurisdiction. There are some segments where the roadway will be widened to the south or to the north, and that's to basically avoid as many displacements as possible. So we're trying to snake it through to minimize impact on residents nearby the road.
I think the word is snake, not snake.
There are 2 sections, 2 segments of the roadway where 2 alternatives have been proposed. This first segment, is between Shirk Street and Acres Street, which is to the west of the city of Visalia. If you're familiar, there is an Evans Ditch which runs parallel to the road on the south side of the road. The first alternative maintains the existing right-of-way on the north and will widen to the south. That would require a piping of the Evans Ditch, which is consistent with the construction to the east by the city of Visalia. So that is the preferred alternative for the city of Visalia. The second alternative is to widen on both sides of the road, which would negate any impact to the Evans Ditch, but would require the relocation of a couple dozen high voltage utility lines. So that's the second alternative here within this roadway segment. The other alternative that has been developed is near the Charter Alternatives Academy, which is also, or was known as the Union School, located on Road 148 on the northeast corner of Road 148 and Avenue 280. Alternative 1, property acquisition would be uniquely to the north, so it would be an additional 40-foot right-of-way acquisition along the north side of the road. This would negate any impacts to a series of houses that run along the south side of the road there. Because this phase of the project has been developed using federal and state funding, a second alternative had to have been developed under NEPA federal guidelines, which minimizes impacts to either school properties or parks. So a second alternative was developed, widening only to the south, the additional 40 feet required. But here you can see that there are 3 houses that would be impacted and would be required to be displaced under this alternative. Once the alignments were developed, under CEQA guidelines, there are a variety of environmental resources that have to be investigated and studied to see what the impacts of the project would be on these resources. On this table, you can see there are 2 columns, either less than significant with mitigations, or significant or cumulatively considerable and unavoidable. You can see the majority of the resources have, under CEQA guidelines, been determined to be less than significant when proper mitigations are utilized with the project. There are, however, 3 resources that are either significant or cumulatively considerable and unavoidable. And in the next few slides, I'll go into a little more detail about what those impacts are. Alphabetically here, the first impact being aesthetics. We are going from a 2-lane roadway to a divided 4-lane roadway, so obviously there will be some impacts to the visual state of the road. This is one of the unavoidable significant impacts of the project. We will mitigate impacts as much as possible by replacing landscaping, fencing, trees, shrubbery as possible as part of this project. Because the roadway is widened, there will be property acquisition, which will impact farmland and agricultural resources. You can see here that both alternatives are pretty much the same, with either 79.9 or 80.4 acres of property being acquired. This is 7/1000ths of the prime and unique farmland within Tulare County. This impact is one of the cumulatively considerable and unavoidable impacts of the project. Air quality and climate change. This project will temporarily increase emissions due to construction activity. This can be mitigated through use of dust control plans and other measures to reduce emissions, such as requiring the contractor to use modern equipment that has proper emissions regulating equipment on it. There are a number of sensitive species along the roadway that could potentially be impacted by the proposed project. You see them on the list here. Some of them include valley elderberry beetle, burrowing owl, San Joaquin kit fox. These impacts can all be reduced to less than significant impacts due to mitigations. Mitigations would include studying and avoiding the particular areas in which these species can be found, potentially relocating the species, or purchasing land-based credits, which would provide alternative areas for these species to become situated. So all of the biological resources have been, when mitigated properly, determined to have a less than significant impact on the environment. As far as cultural resources go, a study was done identifying potential properties that would be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places along the roadway. There is one at 1051 West Visalia Road. This is within the city of Exeter on the south side of the road, just west of the golf course. There will be a partial take of property acquisition here. It's approximately 2 feet to the south of the road, so it is minimal, but it will be taking one of the rows of orange trees that protects the house from the roadway noise and disturbances. There are 3 other rows of trees there approximately to protect the house. So it is a potential impact to the property that is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. As far as noise goes, there will be construction, and construction brings with it noise. So the third significant and unavoidable impact from the project is the temporary noise due to construction. CEQA guidelines state that if the permanent noise does not exceed 3 decibels, the noise exposure is not considered significant. So permanent noise is insignificant with mitigations. However, the temporary noise of the construction is considered to be significant. And here we see a picture of an existing sound wall along the north side of Avenue 280 between Demery and Linwood Street. There are to be a number of property acquisitions and a few potential relocations with the proposed project. You can see that with alignment alternative 1, there's 167 partial property acquisitions. These would vary from between 2 feet to approximately 40 feet along the road right-of-way. Alternative 2 has 180 potential partial property acquisitions. And as far as displacement goes, Alternative 1 will potentially displace 2 single-family residences, and Alternative 2 will potentially displace 4 single-family residences. Here we can see a picture of an area on the south side of the road. The road will be widening approximately 2 feet, and the majority of the houses in this segment have setbacks far enough that they will not be displaced by the project. So this project what we're meeting here today is CEQA guidelines, California Environmental Quality Act. We are also preparing documentation for the National Environmental Policy Act. And that is being done because this phase of the project is being prepared using federal funds, so we are required to do that. That's being done in coordinations with both Caltrans and Federal Highways Administration. Completion of the NEPA process, which would be a finding of no significant impact after an environmental assessment is prepared, would make the project eligible for federal funding in the future. As we speak about the future status of the project, the funding for the final design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction of the project is currently undetermined. We only have funding for the project approval and environmental documentation stage of the project, which is what we're in now. Potential funding sources for the project would be either through federal or state dollars or possibly Measure R. The cities of both Visalia and Exeter may decide to go ahead with the project as they find other local funding sources available. They will be responsible for the design and construction of the project within their boundaries. Project's likely to be broken up and built in phases as money and resources become available, and also as the sections of the road become mandated or become necessary due to congestion and needs that way. As a slight aside, Caltrans does plan to improve the Avenue 280 and State Route 99 interchange as a separate project. So that will be a portion of the corridor that will be improved in the next probably 10 to 20 years. As I stated, we're currently, the draft environmental impact report is currently out for review. It's out May 6th and will end June 21st. So comments can be either provided today verbally, or written comments can be provided to myself at Tulare County Resource Management Agency, 5961 South Mooney Boulevard, Visalia 93277. The document, we have a couple copies with us here today. It's also available on the website, and on the website shown here. And it's also available at the office if any members of the public would like to come and obtain a copy of that, we can provide that for them. At this time, I'd like to open any questions from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Schenk. Questions? Yes, Mr.
I do have one question. Well, first of all, just a comment. Mr. Schenk, I'd like to thank you for a very detailed and thorough presentation. I do appreciate that. You did a great job outlining everything in this project. I did want to ask you why the city of Farmersville is not participating in this project. Just a little more detail. I'm not familiar with why.
Sure. They've actually gone ahead and they've widened their section of the roadway already, so it's basically at the proposed limits. I think on the eastern side, it is narrowed down to 3 lanes, but as we come in and widen the project, they'll be able to restripe that roadway to match the 4-lane conditions that are out there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? If not, this is a public hearing. Ask the public to come forward this time, give us their name and address on this matter. Morning, sir.
Good morning to the supervisors. My name is Ned Satimi. I'm a property owner on Avenue 280. I have 2 parcels there adjacent to the city limits of Exeter. And the reason why I'm here today is because I have 2 concerns. The first concern is I'd like to have a fair and just compensation for the land that I'm going to lose. And my second concern is my pistachio trees are planted in a north-south direction perpendicular to Road 280. The road widening would require the loss of 1 row of trees at least. However, turning the farm equipment around by the highway to enter the next row may require going on the road pavement to make the turn. This is unacceptable and dangerous. It may require removal of a 2nd row of trees in order to make the turn safely. All of this would result in substantial loss of income, not only for 1 year, but for many succeeding years, since these trees are in their prime production. And I would expect adequate compensation for this. And the reason why I'm here is I just would like to have this incorporated into the record.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing here no, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I remember 6 years ago, after I was elected, that we had a presentation by Caltrans about this roadway, and it looks like we're finally making substantial progress in getting this project done. It doesn't mean it will be built in the next 6 years, but this is a very important step into getting a project funded. If we had this project through the EIR, we could potentially have gotten funding in this last round of the stimulus package. But you never know when the money's going to show up, so my hat's off to the county for being prepared, that if money does drop from heaven, we'll be there to catch it on this project. So thank you very much.
Other comments?
No, sir.
All right, the motion is to direct staff to continue to receive comments on the draft environmental impact report and prepare responses and return to the board of certification.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Ishida, seconded by Mr. Cox. Please cast your votes, and the votes are unanimous. Thank you, staff. Thank you for being here this morning. At this time, we will go to our one untimed item, and that is item number 29, and this is a request from the Resource Management Agency to receive an update on the batch non-renewal of substandard non-prime parcels under land conservation contracts of less than 40 acres. Morning, Mr. Purcell.
Good morning, Chairman Worthley and members of the board. I am Fred Persuelis with the planning branch of RMA. My pleasure to be here this morning. As you may recall, I had an opportunity to make a presentation to you in March regarding our efforts to follow through with some of the directives the board had given staff in regards to the non-renewal process. And we've completed the first process on the prime lands. You asked us to proceed with non-renewals on the substandard non-prime parcels. So I'm here just to let you know that we are presently working in that regard in the effort to move forward in that direction. And presently, staff has identified 159 parcels of land for non-renewal consideration, and we've prepared a work program, and we're presently implementing part of that program. We estimate that our work will go from now and be completed toward the end of the summer. We expect by September to complete the batch non-renewal process. And in that particular time, we'll give you a report and let you know what the outcomes were, very similar to what we did for you in March 23rd. So I just wanted to let you know that we are progressing. We're moving forward with that. There is also another effort underway where I'll be coming back, hopefully in not too distant future, to present to you some of the other issues that you had identified with regard to the entire California land conservation contract issue, whether or not it was appropriate to consider batch non-renewal for the entire county, or whether or not there's some implications, fiscal matters of property assessments, impacts to agribusiness in the county, and what direction the board should take with regard to our entire program regarding the loss of subventions from the state of California. So that's a report that'll be coming up in the near future. I'm working with the assessor's office in regards to some of the implications we have on land values and things of that nature. So I'm pleased to report that your direction, we are proceeding forward, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have in regard to our progress.
Mr. Purcell, I note that there was a total of 616 parcels of non-prime less than 40 acres, and you didn't speak to that, but my assumption is, and you can certainly correct me on that, that the determination has already been made by your staff that even though they're less than 40 acres, they are part of larger operations and so forth, so that it's clear that they ought to continue under the Williamson Act, and that the 159 acres are the ones that your staff has a serious doubt about whether or not they ought to be in the Williamson Act?
That is correct. That's absolutely.
And now there's still the process for people on the 159 parcels to be able to respond back to our staff with explanations as to why they think they should still be able to continue under the contracts?
That is correct, and that number of 159 could be reduced if we have some evidentiary material or if there's an oversight on our part. So we'll have that process where property owners have an opportunity to come to us and we can talk about the status of their.
If it was similar to our prime, as I recall, we had 300 and some parcels
Yes.
similarly situated and ultimately only took action on, was it 88 parcels, something of that nature?
That's correct.
Yeah. So this is still part of a process. Property owners will have an opportunity. They will be notified of this intent and then given the opportunity to make their case as to why they should still be part of that process.
That's correct.
Thank you. Questions? Yes.
And I was just going to compliment RMA staff for allowing for that appeals process. I think this is a good process and work program to be going through to clean up the Williamson Act rolls. But I do just think it's very important that we continue to give an opportunity to landowners to actually justify if they are using a substandard parcel for agriculture, as this act was intended to be used for. I'm glad to see that we're doing that. So thank you for doing that, and I'm fully supportive of this effort.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Other comments or questions?
One
Mr.
quick
Cox?
thing. Of the 88, I remember this process. How many were actually going through the process to be being taken out of the Williamson Act plan?
I believe the 88 was the number we eventually came up with. That we're going to have the notices of non-renewal.
Right.
I think that was the final number, if I'm not mistaken.
So the clarification I'm looking for then of the non-renewal or of the notices we sent out, how many of those parcels were taken out or are in the process of being taken out of that contract or having that contract canceled? Is it the 88?
Yes, it's the 88 out of the 350 plus.
Okay. I understand that. I'm wondering as we go through this at a piece at a time, as we look at what other counties might be doing with their Williamson Act contracts. I'm still of the opinion that we need to take a real hard look at this, because if there's not going to be a subvention from the state, I wonder how long can we continue to absorb the millions of dollars that we are currently absorbing, which equals real layoffs.
Yes.
Well, and I would just comment in response, I think that it's obviously the direction of the board and also the direction RMA has taken to convene a Williamson Act subcommittee group with interested stakeholders to look at the potential and possibility for different options and different programs should the Williamson Act be eliminated. However, I know as one board member, I don't see myself supporting any cancellation of the Williamson Act program altogether without some sort of backup program or replacement program to incentivize the production or the maintenance of ag land within Tulare County. That is our number one industry, and I don't foresee that changing. And I think it is our responsibility as representatives of the county and of those landowners to make sure that this program goes forward.
Well, and I just to kind of wrap this up, I suppose, but this is a completion of a process we began last fall. The intent was to do this process of cleaning up our rolls to determine how many. We had no idea when we started this process how many parcels were non-conforming, and we are building a database now of knowing what that is. And this is very important information. I know, like in Fresno County's case, they had looked at adopting different standards for what would qualify under the Act, and they looked at larger size parcels on one side of the 99 and another size parcel on the west side of the 99. And I think it was kind of a shot in the dark. And then when they did some analysis, they found out that, my gosh, that wipes out almost all the Williamson Act contracts. So then they backed off of that. So this really is providing us with information and data that will be very helpful in the future as we do further analyses of how to deal with this particular issue. Obviously, looking at the state budget this year, we knew that our work was cut out for us to try to reinstate the subvention, and if anything, it's doubly so. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult even though, in light of the very tiny amount of money, and when you look at the $35 million total subvention from the state, notwithstanding the serious nature of the finance of the state of California, this still qualifies as budget dust and could be reinstated and with really virtually no impact on the general fund as a whole. But for instance, we just took action today, again, our consent calendar, to terminate a contract that will generate, I think it was $120,000 that goes back to the state of California as an early termination of the contract. So we know that monies are still going to the state of California, and after they get through paying for their Department of Conservation, it goes into the general fund. And so, in my mind, those dollars ought to be made available to the counties that are suffering the consequences of the loss of the subvention and the tax losses. But so we will continue to pursue this. I am your representative on the CSAC Select Committee, one of 2 supervisors in the state that are continuing to pursue this. We have a meeting coming up in June to have another review of this process. But I can tell you, it is a serious issue, and even more serious in other counties than Tulare County from the standpoint of Colusa County, which is a very small county of 25,000 people. The subvention amounts to 12% of their total budget. It is just huge. And so for them, the supervisor who was on our group made it very clear that there was no way their county could remain in the Williams-Sonoma contracts with those losses. They're just not. They are simply not sustainable. So, and other counties are similarly situated. So this is one of those situations that doesn't affect all counties equally. It's amazing, out of the 58 counties, 57 counties, that there are actually 48, I think, or something like that, are in the program. Even Los Angeles County is in the program. So you'd be surprised how many counties have property under the Conservation Act. But obviously, the bulk of it is in the San Joaquin and the Sacramento valleys. Anything further, members?
We do need a motion.
We do need a motion, yes.
I'll make that motion to receive this presentation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Vanderpool, second by Mr. Ennis. Please cast your votes. Votes are unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Sells. That concludes our open session, and we have closed session items to council that we need to handle today.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do. Item A is off agenda. You have items B through J on your board's closed session agenda and addendum agenda, and I do not anticipate any announcements.
Thank you.